Hey everyone, happy Friday. Welcome to Broadband Deployment News. There's a new report out that shows that recipients of the Affordable Connectivity Program are big-time broadband users. Be right back. Thanks for joining me. Rick Husey here with Broadband Deployment News. So OpenVault has come out with a new report. OpenVault's a company that provides broadband usage management, and as part of that, as software as a service kind of thing, they're able to see the broadband usage of internet service providers, so they can collect a lot of that data, and they've regularly been providing kind of broadband usage reporting. And this is the first time that they've added something about the Affordable Connectivity Program. So I was going to run through just a couple of their findings here I thought that were interesting about that, and then just a couple on broadband usage in general. So let's take a look at that. So here you can see this is from their report. The Affordable Connectivity Program, an initial glimpse. This first paragraph here talks about what the ACP is, and if you're not familiar with that, that's a subsidy program that is part of the Infrastructure Act. It overtook the emergency broadband benefit that was part of the coronavirus package that was passed earlier. So this is meant to be a program for low-income individuals that qualify. The internet service provider signs up to be able to offer it, and then the person who qualifies signs up, and then they get the service from the internet service provider. The ISP reduces the amount of their account by that subsidy amount, and then they get paid back by the government for having those customers. And I did a broadcast not long ago about some fraud in this program. It turns out that maybe some sales agents from internet service providers are using one qualifying person's information, like their qualifying number, that should just be for one household, and they might use that 1,000 times. So there's been hundreds of thousands of dollars of fraud that they've identified that in this program. So it's not so much it's not so much what they've reported about the individuals that are using the service that it's fraud. It seems to be the ISPs, or really maybe even the sales agents of the ISPs, that are trying to sign people up for these programs and reusing these numbers over and over again. So it'll be interesting to see what comes about from that. But one thing we learned from this report is that folks that are on the ACP are definitely using the service. Now, I suppose some of them could be not qualifying, and maybe they got signed up on that through fraud of some kind, but certainly people are using the service. So again, they mention what's going on there, and then, or what that is, the ACP. And then OpenVault was able to observe usage behavior of several thousand ACP participants during the second quarter, providing an initial glimpse into the impact of ACP. Without a doubt, ACP participants are taking advantage of the program, and their bandwidth usage exceeds that of the broader population in most categories. And they show figure 6 here illustrates ACP participants' average usage at 654 gigabytes. And that's 33% more than the overall average. ACP participants' median usage of close to 500 gigabytes exceeds overall median usage by almost 60%. The average download speed for ACP participants was 236 megabits per second in the second quarter 2022. And you can see down here in the chart, so this is the, it's got here weighted average upstream usage, and pretty close there. So the blue is all other folks, and the orange kind of color is ACP. So you can see here the weighted average for everyone that was not ACP was 459.5, and ACP was 620.1 gigabytes. And then you've got weighted median usage, 313.9 versus 499. And then down here, the weighted average was 490.7 gigabytes versus 654 gigabytes. So that's pretty interesting that they're using that much data. Switch here, there we go. Compared with all subscribers, ACP participants are significantly more likely to be power users. There are 36% more ACP power users, that's greater than 1 terabyte, that's how they define that, than overall average, and there are 52% more ACP superpower users, which is greater than 2 terabytes per month. You can see those figures here. So these are, what is this again? This is your superpower. So this is 2 terabytes, greater than that. You've got your blue or your ACP in this case, and the orange is everyone else. And then here you've got your blue being ACP for your power users, which would be greater than 1 terabyte, but less than 2 terabytes. And you've got 20.8% of ACP users fall in that category versus 13.66% of everyone else. Now there's a caveat down here. They say, while OpenVault analyzed a relatively small sample size, the data is important for service providers and regulators alike to understand. With close to 1/4 or 23.8% of ACP participants qualifying as power users, the impact of an expanding ACP subscriber base has significant implications for broadband traffic. So, again, this is, what does this tell me? Well, one thing it tells me is that these folks are power users because they're probably doing lots of video streaming, because really that's going to be what's driving broadband. These kinds of numbers would be somebody that's doing a lot of streaming. So it tells me that. Also probably that they are not, it's possible that some of these lower speed kinds of app programs could be, hang on one second, it's not going to work. Sorry, thought I could see a chat here, but I'll answer the question. So it shows me that some of the folks are probably signing up for something that's maybe not the lowest cost package available, because if let's say there's a low cost package for $30, I don't know what the kind of speeds would be that they would get, but I think more likely they are signing up, at least a lot of the folks that are being looked at here are signing up for packages that are in maybe the gigabit range or high or close to that, because they are obviously transmitting a lot of data. So in that case, it's a $30 subsidy, and let's say the gigabit package costs $50, $60, $70, maybe $80 a month, could be higher, I guess. Then they'll get that subsidy towards that, but they're probably having to pay some of that broadband cost. There is a question here, and I don't have it set up where I can actually see it on the screen, but the question is from Chris. Will sharing possible reason for their outsized usage? Thinking MDUs. Wi-Fi sharing possible reason for their outsized usage. Thinking MDUs. That's possible, I guess. In other words, somebody in an apartment building and they've got Wi-Fi, and maybe they're letting their neighbors they would hopefully be letting their neighbors do that and have a secure Wi-Fi connection, maybe giving the passwords. That's possible. Conway Fan 98 says, I'm using the ACP with a 1 meg speed. It's quite sad that I have to use ACP on such a garbage package. Yeah, it is. And you would not be able to get these kinds of numbers on your package, even if you wanted to, probably. So yeah, that is pretty sad. But as we've said before, I think you're going to be seeing improvements. It's just a question of how long now it's going to take for you to get any money, or for your provider to get any money through BEAD, because that's going to be taking longer. But if they get some RDOF funds or ARPA funds, then you'll get that sooner. So a few more slides here that talk about usage. These are not ACP related, but I thought these were interesting. So, because we're seeing in general, people are using more bandwidth in general. So power users monthly consumption, this is again second quarter. So again, these are your greater than 1 terabyte and greater than 2 terabyte users. So you've got, and they're showing here the difference between a usage-based billing provider and somebody that does fixed rate billing. So that's UBB is usage-based, and then fixed rate billing. So they're showing for usage-based billing, the comparison between these two categories of your super power users and your power users. So usage-based billing and fixed rate billing, pretty close, 2.15%, 2.36% on these two categories here. And then and that's for the usage-based billing versus 13.42%. So this is your lesser or 1 terabyte version, 13.42% for usage-based billing and 14.25% for fixed-rate billing. So it's interesting that fixed-rate billing is higher. So for those ISPs, they're actually most likely getting more revenue, or average revenue per user on those, because they're charging folks if they could be charging folks if they exceed a certain amount. They could be charging them per gigabyte or megabyte, or however they do that. Or it could be that they've just got a tier for people that are using more. And then you've got your fixed rate billing, where it's very, very likely just all you can eat. But it's interesting that the fixed rate actually have a higher usage, because a lot of times you'll see people migrate to a fixed rate biller if they're heavy users, because it's like they don't want to pay anymore, so they'll go to a fixed rate kind of biller. So then we've got here, these are your provisioned speed tiers for the second quarter, and As we've seen before, this is kind of your sweet spot in here. 200 to 400 megabits per second is where a lot of people are at. That's 55.4%. A lot of times that's kind of your cable operator because they're not really set up to easily offer gigabit speeds, but with something like DOCSIS 3.1 or even DOCSIS 3.0, they can get in this range on the download speeds. So and cable obviously is the greatest share of broadband throughout the country. So that's a lot of folks are going to fall in here that are in the territories of folks like Comcast and your big MSOs, or like I say, even any cable operator that's trying to offer speeds now up in the 300 to 600 megabit range. They're going to be falling here. This is 200 to 400 megabits per second. Then you've got right here, this is 500 to 900 megabits per second. So this is a little bit faster here at 6%. Then you've got the gig. So this is where I think you've got a lot of your fiber operators that have they've deployed fiber and they can offer gig. So they do offer gig because again, they're competing with the cable operators down here and maybe now 5G operators that can't do gig easily. Cable can if they upgrade to DOCSIS 3.1 and go fiber deep and do lots of things to get to that gig, at least on the download speed. But here I think what you're seeing is the impact of fiber. So you've got a good number that have signed up now for gigabit fiber. This is your lower kind of speeds. This is 100 to 200 megabits per second, 50 to 100, and then less than 50 megabits per second. Conway fan, this is where you fall, and you fall there. It's not your choice, unfortunately for you. It's not your choice, and I think in most cases this is not the choice of the folks that live in these areas. And this is what we're trying to address with all of the broadband funding, right? It's just a sliver here as far as this pie, which is some good news that we're seeing speeds get higher, and we're seeing these lower speeds. We're seeing these contract as we're seeing these other speeds get bigger. These slices of pie getting bigger. So that's good news. But it is like in an area like yours taking longer to get something like old DSL technology built out with fiber there. And there's some notes here that are interesting. So you got the gigabit subscriber tier in second quarter 2022 reached 14.2% of all subscribers. And that's up more than 35% from a year ago. So again, that I think is a big impact of a lot of fiber going in the ground, a lot of upgrades, companies that have been upgrading either the fiber plant that they had to get to a gig, or, more likely upgrading areas with DSL, or, new builds of fiber that have been taking place all of this time in the last year. So that's good news. With 55% of subscribers in the second quarter, the 200 to 400 megabit speed tier is by far the most popular tier. So again, that's your sweet spot right there. What most people are getting, and that's good speeds right there from most everything that you want to do. You can easily stream have many streams going at the same time. If you're doing that on the upload, it's a little bit. We don't know what the upload speeds are here, but that would be more if you were streaming something yourself versus watching something. When I say streaming, I'm really referring to most people, what they do, which is they consume content. So that's coming downstream to them. And then you've got, last note here, the slowest speed tier of less than 50 megabits per second continues to shrink. In the second quarter, it was 5.7% of all subscribers, down nearly 25% from first quarter 2022, which was 7.6%. So that's a little slice here. So this has been shrinking as some of this territory has been overbuilt with better service. So again, that's good news. But what this shows you as far as the ACP goes, and also as far as unlimited usage, is that that's something that operators need to be thinking about. Because a lot of people want service providers to say, hey, it should be all unlimited because it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't really cost anything, if you provide unlimited to everybody. And if you have some large users, large bandwidth users, it doesn't cost much, but it really does cost a lot when you have a lot of people using a lot of bandwidth. And then again, with the ACP, they're getting paid back from the government for that subsidy, but if they are thinking that they want to have a low-cost product and maybe not have any usage tiers, that could be something that could bite them there, because if you're not getting much revenue for that, then it really does get even more costly, because you're not getting that much money to be able to pay for all of the bandwidth that you're going to need back to the backbone to do that. So there is a cost of providing the service. So it is a good idea to have safeguards in place. Again, what it shows you is the folks that are on ACP is they're using the service. Okay, so it's not just I need an internet connection so I can check on things on the web and get email back and forth. I mean, they're using it. They're streaming. They're obviously streaming a lot. So maybe, this can help save them money, right? So they've got the ACP. They can drop a cable TV package if they had that, but they're certainly making use of the service. So there's no doubt about that. Chris says, convinced this is mostly a result of Wi-Fi sharing. It's not likely ACP users are going to be as sophisticated as most power users. I don't know if that's the case, Chris, because there's so many ways you can qualify for this that people, these folks have cell phones, they have computers, a lot of times they have computers, laptops, those kinds of things. They've been using the internet. It's just that this is giving them a subsidy there to be able to help afford that. So I think I don't see any less sophisticated nature there, but there certainly is. I didn't think about the Wi-Fi sharing. That is certainly a possibility if somebody's, let's say, in a MDU, that they could be possibly sharing that access with others. Yeah, the usage billing based thing, that is certainly something that service providers need to take into account. Yeah, sorry, I didn't have the chat set up to be able to view it on the screen. I forgot to do that, so I'll have that set up next time. But anyway, thought this was interesting. So ACP, again, if you weren't aware from the other day, there is fraud that is taking place in this, and really what it amounts to is the sales agents at some of these internet service providers wanting to pump up their sales because it's, let's say, a fairly easy sale. If somebody calls in and says, hey, can I qualify for this ACP thing? They maybe ask them a few questions, and if the person doesn't qualify, they could say, well, wait a minute, I've got this number here that I signed up somebody with the other day. They don't tell them that probably, but here, I can get you in the system. So they put them in the system, and they get the sale for that. The service provider gets that, and maybe the service provider is not keeping an eye on those things. Or it could be a situation like I mentioned where maybe it's a lazy sales rep. It's like, yeah, we can get you set up for that. Hold on, I'll put you in the system. And they don't bother going through whatever the qualifications are. They just sign the people up if they ask about it. So there could be some of that going on. But in any event, it's been hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of fraud. But the good news is the OIG caught it. The FCC put out an announcement about it. And any ISPs, I'm sure, that have had this going on are being looked at very carefully right now. And there could be consequences. There should be consequences. Obviously, some of this money is going to have to come back, and there could be consequences if it's found out that they're not properly doing this program. So thanks again for joining me. I will be back next week with broadband deployment news. In the meantime, if you're not subscribed, click the little button to subscribe, click the bell to be notified when I'm live. If you like this, give me a thumbs up on the video. I'd appreciate it. Thanks a lot, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.